Welcome to the channel. This is episode 2 of the Marble Palace. If you haven't heard episode 1, check the link in the description so that you can begin this adventure from the beginning. Anya walked to the guardhouse and waved at the guard inside. He was a little shocked to see her, not expecting her to keep her promise. "Miss, I did not expect to see you again," he said, letting her into the records room. Anya realized that he didn't know her name either. "And why not? I had promised to make you warm gloves for winter." Gert entered the room as well. There was a steady shower that began a few seconds ago. He was smiling and had a twinkle in his eye when he entered. "I should have imposed upon His Majesty's hospitality longer. I can't make it home in this weather," he muttered, mainly to the room other than the two people in it. The recorder stood up immediately at seeing a high-ranking officer. "Good evening, Lieutenant," he saluted. "Good evening, Corporal. At ease. You won't mind if I stay for a while, won't you?" he asked unnecessarily. It was not like the recorder would send out a high-ranking officer in the downpour. "Of course not, Lieutenant. Please have a seat." He offered the space next to where Anya was sitting. The guard became nervous suddenly. Anya was not supposed to be here. Though her visit was friendly, it might be misconstrued as something else. "Good evening, Lieutenant Grenville," she said in a low voice. "Good evening, Anya," he answered, wondering what her ploy was. "You two know each other?" the recorder asked. "Yes, we do. I served with her brother, Lieutenant Webb, at Piran," Gert told the guard. If she greeted him with his name, then she had no qualms about letting the recorder know that they knew each other. "Your brother was Lieutenant Webb? My deepest condolences," he said remorsefully. "Thank you." Her words were quiet, and the room took on a somber mood. "What is your name, my good man?" Gert broke the silence. "Ewan Skulls, Lieutenant. You are a good man, Ewan Skulls. Do you have hopes of joining the battlefield one day?" Gert inquired. A small, dark cloud passed over his face. "I used to, Lieutenant, but not anymore. I had an elder brother who died at the Piran," he confessed, thinking of his mother and sister, who needed someone who could take care of them. Him going to the battlefield would leave them without any protection. He chose to become a recorder in the Marble Palace because the job was safe. No one attacked a recorder. "You have surviving family, Corporal?" Anya asked. "Yes, a sister and mother. My sister just turned 12 summers this year," he answered. "It must have been hard on you when you lost your brother," she said quietly, thinking about how hard it was to talk about her father, mother, and Milo months after their deaths. "It was. A year after his death, all I want is closure. To just know his dying words." "Did he suffer?" "I guess I will never know that." He shook his head. "I saw Milo the day he arrived at the parade. He waved at me. I didn't know that hello was actually a goodbye." Anya took a deep breath to steady herself, emotions still raw, remembering that day vividly, the twinkle of happiness at seeing her that flashed in his eyes. She looked around the room, "And to think this is the last place he passed before he went to his death is chilling," she said. A somber, uncomfortable quiet settled in the room. Anya then raised a bottle of hot water. "If you have tea leaves and cups, we could brew something with this hot water before it chills," she broke the silence. Ewan immediately stood and started looking around the room, and came up with 3 battered metal cups and some tea leaves. They made the tea and shared in the 3 cups. "You know his last written words are in here? It is not much consolation, but I would love to see my brother's last words," Ewan suggested. "I don't want to bother you," Anya said, shaking her head. "Oh, and before I forget, the weather is getting colder, and I made you a promise." She extracted the soft leather gloves from her pocket. "Here, I made these." She handed the beautifully stitched gloves to him. The soft leather might not be of the highest quality, but it is wonderfully put together. A smile covered Ewan's face. He couldn't remember when he had ever received such a considerate gift from anyone other than his family. "Thank you. I hope they weren't much trouble," he said. "Not at all. And before you think I pilfered from the Emperor's storerooms, we have been making winter clothes for the Imperial Palace. The leather I used on yours is leftover scrap," she explained, "which is the truth. The clothes are for the servants of the Imperial Palaces." "Thank you," he said again, and paused. "You know it won't be a bother to me at all if you saw your brother's last written words." Anya hesitated, not wanting to seem too eager. "I wouldn't mind seeing Milo's words. I'm sure Anya is just being bashful, but she would as well," Gert joined in. Ewan didn't wait for Anya's response when he got up and pulled the large record book. "It might be in here. This is the last one we used before we opened this one," he supplied. He began going down the records quietly, his head immersed in finding the date. Gert looked over at Anya with a knowing look in his eye. Milo said his young sister was quick-witted and always managed to get her way. He never believed him until now. "Here we go. This is the day of the parade. Many soldiers entered that day. Most weren't recorded when going in, but definitely recorded coming out." He went down the list, the exits that happened that day. "Mostly it's traitors that left earlier that night," he said. Anya's heart skipped a beat. Do they physically record them too? Yuan shook his head. Traders are given a plank with a number on it. They keep it, and it's their identifying mark when they come in and go out. Just the number is recorded. Here we are, he said, and turning the book towards Anya, who leaned over it. Written clearly were Milo's initials and his rank. Below it, a number 348, her father's number. The plank was never found on him. He had worn it around his neck. They had to reapply to the Department of Purchases for a new one. The new number they were given was 596. I never found my father's plank. What happens to the number when it is lost? The number will be recycled, but that's only after 2 years of not being used, Yuan answered. There are only numbers of traders on top of Milo's name, but a code below her father's number, NDC 12. What does this number mean? She inquired. That belongs to the noble dowager concubine number 12. That is the code of the Grand Lady Hyra, the mother of Prince Elliot and Tedric, he said. Next to the name, there is no identifying mark, only eunuch is written. No other identifying mark is written for the person who used this? We don't usually do that. The tags are palace-specific. The rain outside had stopped. I will sign myself out and proceed on my way home before the skies open again, Gert said. He signed and left them alone. Yuan thanked Anya again for the gloves, as she was running her hand over her brother's and father's initials for the last time, and shut the book. No thank you, Yuan. I'm glad you showed me this, she said. They exchanged their goodbyes, and she left the room, heading back to the dormitory when 2 figures in shadows against the wall stood in the light to block Anya's way. The 2 were expecting to startle her, but were disappointed. Last time I checked, the meditation hall is the other direction, Anya. Shay's words were met with silence from Anya. We saw you with the soldier. Only the gods know what illicit things you 2 did in the dark. We are going to report you and you will be kicked out of the Marble Palace, Lena added with satisfaction. Good. You make your report, and I will make mine. We will see who they will believe, Anya answered. What do you mean? Lena asked with concern. That I saw you 2 cavorting with 2 guards while I was leaving the meditation room, and to cover up your misdeeds, you tried to accuse me of the obscene crime. The proof, of course, is in that both of you are drenched while I am as dry as I left the meditation room, Anya laid her accusation to them. Both Shay and Lena's mouths dropped in shock. It was Lena who recovered first. You are a vile, vile human being. You know that's a vicious lie. Anya's smile widened. Of course it is a vicious lie, but unlike you who can't even describe the man I was with, I can clearly describe the ones you 2 were with, she said, stepping closer to the 2 young women. Shay gasped, her eyes looking as if they wanted to pop out. A lone figure from the entrance of the inner palace was walking slowly. His clothing showed that it was an inner palace guard. Lena smirked and turned towards the guard. Guard, come here, will you? She said with self-righteous authority. The guard for a split second looked unsure whether to approach or not. Anya wondered what an inner palace guard was doing in the outer palace. We found this scallywag here having a tryst with a soldier. As we all know, all women in the Marble Palace other than those above age 23 and free to marry are the Emperor's women. Her meeting is a direct spit on His Majesty's name. The guard drew closer. He was unarmed and seemed to be amused by what Lena was saying. His posture was all wrong as well when Anya looked at him. He didn't possess the stuffy straightbacks palace guards had. Is that so? You outstanding ladies may leave. I will take this, scallywag, as you've called her, to the chief eunuch for discipline, he said. His hands were behind him. Not the posture of a guard. The triumphant look on Lena and Shay's face would disturb Anya if the guard's oddity didn't. The 2 ladies walked away, leaving Anya alone with the guard. When they reached a good distance, he gave her a head-to-toe look, not sexual but like he was looking at a piece of art. Don't you know the rules of the palace? Why would you have a tryst when you belong to the Emperor? His deep, husky and amused voice asked. Anya started to appraise him as well. He was wearing simple leather shoes, but not those which were worn by guards. His body was free of sword or any weapon, and he seemed to have been missed by the rain that was pouring a few minutes ago. He was a tall man, very well built and with chiseled features and dark brown hair. His eyes were the color of a gray, angry sky, and a nose that seemed to have been broken before. He wasn't a soft-looking man. He was a man who had been to war and back, fought battles many too, as evidenced by the scar on his jaw. When you finish admiring my charms, you can answer my question. He broke the silence that ensued. A smirk appeared on Anya's face. This man was definitely not a guard, but he surely couldn't be who she suspected, can it? Guards! Guards! She shouted on top of her voice suddenly, and the man's eyes widened in surprise. 2 outer palace guards immediately appeared. This man is posing to be a guard in His Majesty's inner palace. He must be a spy, she said smoothly but loud enough to raise alarm with the 2 guards. They unsheathed their swords, about to attack when he turned, and they saw his face. Both guards immediately blanched and dropped their swords, getting on one knee in a bow. "Pardon our petulance, Your Majesty," one of the guards said. They confirmed Anya's suspicion. She remembered seeing His Majesty when he was much younger, on horseback, passing through the city from his victorious war campaign. He had a fresh scar on his chin then, had been famously spotted with a beard since. The Emperor turned to look at Anya, expecting horror in her eyes, but was surprised to find a knowing twinkle which annoyed him. Anya bowed to him, which annoyed him as well, especially now that she knew who he was from the very beginning. "I deserve punishment for my stupidity, Your Majesty. However, I am humbly begging for your forgiveness. I am only 2 weeks old in the Marble Palace, and my vigilance for your safety caused me to err," she murmured. He could sense the insincerity in her voice. That annoyed him further. Fast footsteps were heard coming in their direction, and suddenly stopped. "Pardon me, Your Majesty, but you have an urgent message." The look in His Majesty's secretary's face indicated the message was very serious. His annoyance forgotten, he walked away, leaving the 2 guards and seamstress still bowing. They waited in that position until the footsteps faded away. That's when they regained a standing position. One of the guards looked at Anya with disgust. "Next time, don't go around willy-nilly shouting for help. Know when to open your mouth in the Marble Palace," he said, and his friend made a disgusted sound in agreement as they walked away. Anya walked back to the dormitory, and all the girls were surprised to see her back. "What are you doing back here?" Lucia asked. "Last time I checked, I lived and slept here," Anya's confident answer came. Lucia turned accusingly to Shay and Lena. The two looked as perplexed as she did. Lucia punched her pillow in an attempt to fluff it and slept in a huff. Anya changed into her nightclothes and got into her bed, knowing full well the girls had many unanswered questions. She wasn't going to be the one to supply them with answers, however. She let them wonder how she got away from being expelled from the palace. Her mind drifted to the information she acquired earlier. Someone in the Dowager Grand Concubine's palace killed her brother and father. The Dowager's palace was quite large, housing a goodly number of servants. Anya then realized that to find her family's killer, she must enter the inner palace. How she would do it was what she was wondering. You do not enter the inner palace unless you have been requested to join a house by the concubines. She condemned herself for not fawning over the prospective concubines that day like Lucia did. She would have been one step closer to getting to the killer. Her mind then drifted to the gray eyes she saw earlier, belonging to His Majesty. Anya realized that she got ahead of herself today. Had the Emperor not been called for an urgent matter, he would have punished her, even kicked her out of the palace. Luck had been on her side today, but it will not always be. She had to be pliant and subservient in the future, even if she had no bone of service or compliance in her body. The workroom was abuzz with the usual sound of cutting cloth and the almost silent movements of the seamstresses. The deputy palace eunuch entered with 2 guards, making Madame Frida stand from her seat. "Good day to you, sir." "How may I help you?" she asked. "We received an anonymous tip earlier that one of your seamstresses has been having illicit meetings with a soldier in His Majesty's army. This daring wench is also said to have seduced a palace guard last night to escape judgment," he said clearly for all to hear. Anya looked over at Lena and Shay, who looked down. The cowards do not even have the courage to face her. Madame Frida gave the eunuch a nervous smile. If her girls were misbehaving, then it reflected directly on her. "Did the tip mention who this brazen girl is?" The eunuch turned and looked over to the seamstresses. Indeed it did. "Anya Webb," he called out her name. Anya slowly but confidently stood up, hoping her accusers will stand as well. They both had found a particular sudden interest in the floor. "That is my name, sir," she answered clearly. The eunuch looked at her over. The girl was strikingly beautiful. The accusations sounded implausible at first to him, but looking at the girl, it was highly possible. Such beauty only lures trouble. "And what do you say about this accusation?" he asked her. "Sir, I would with an absolute clear conscience say I deny those accusations. My accusers, by being anonymous, means even they do not believe this lie and hope to just soil my name. Had the accusations been true and with evidence, then they would be proudly standing next to you, sir," she said. The eunuch looked at Anya for a few moments in silence. "Very well, you." He points to another maid, Gina, a shy girl who keeps her head down and hopes to stay out of trouble during her service to His Majesty. "Was she in the dormitory last night?" he asked her. Gina looked at Anya first, apologetically, and answered the eunuch. "No, she left for quite some time, sir, during the whole duration of last night's reign, if I'm not mistaken. Is there anyone in this room who is saying this young woman's words are false?" he said, referring to Gina. All the girls are quiet. Gina told no lie. The deputy chief of eunuchs turned to Anya once more. "Well, what do you say about that, Anya?" "I say Gina is telling the truth, but if you ask her further, she will tell you that I left to go to the meditation room. That is where I spent my duration of the reign. So why do you suppose your accusers are bringing this case forward?" if your excursion was that innocent. Jealousy, sir. We are His Majesty's women, but most, if not all, will be released from service a few years from now. The accusation stems from jealousy. It is no secret, I am the best-looking woman in this room. Naturally, they want me out to increase their chances of being picked by His Majesty. Anya's cocktail words brought gasps from the seamstresses. The eunuch looked at her in silence, internally stunned. He prayed this girl did not make it to His Majesty's harem, or else she would burn it down using her tongue. However, as matters stood now, there was no evidence that she committed the crime. She might be right. He was within his rights to kick her out, but she will only go out and shout loud and proud that an injustice was thrust upon her, that she was marked a whore with no evidence. He can't let that happen. People will spit on Jonas Nye, Deputy Chief Eunuch of His Imperial Majesty's service name. No, he can't risk his good name. What is the fourth law of servitude? I'm sure your etiquette school drilled this in each and every one of you. He asked Anya. A small satisfaction blossomed in him when he saw her cringe. Humility. Though we as Dunes are proud people, we also take pride that we are humble people. Anya recited it. And you better remember that, especially while working in the Marble Palace, he warned Anya, then turned to Madame Frida. You have a rowdy group of girls this year, madam, and in all honesty, I pity you for all the work you have to do to bridle them and keep them in line. However, make sure they do not go around causing a ruckus here. He almost turned and left when Shay stood up. The record keeper. He will show us which soldier it is she met with. Her voice was abrupt. The deputy eunuch thought about it for a split second, then gave a sign to one of the guards to collect the records keeper. The room remained in silence. Anya's heart was almost to the floor. They will find Gert's name clearly written down. The records keeper who walked in was different, not Yuan. Were you the one on guard last night? The eunuch asked in a lazy manner. No, I took the morning shift. It was Corporal Yuan Scholes who took guard last night, he answered. Show me the names that left the gates after shutdown at sunset. He ordered the guard, who quickly went to the page. No names were recorded to have left. Even Anya was surprised. She remembered Gert asking to sign the book. The eunuch looked up to Shay. There is no record of a soldier or anyone leaving the palace at sundown. A look of confusion appeared on their faces. She must have seduced the records keeper to not record the soldier's name, the same way she seduced the inner palace guard to let her go. Lena grasped at the last accusation. The deputy eunuch looked bored with the whole thing already. Anya spoke again. Maybe it will help if my two friends here were to describe the soldier. Not many soldiers enter the palace, especially at this time when most are sent to another war campaign. Yes, please describe the soldier, will you? The eunuch said. Lena and Shay look at each other with blank expressions. Or maybe the inner palace guard they claim I seduced, Anya suggests. A delight crosses both their faces. They clearly remember the guard. He was tall, well-built, good-looking man with dark hair, Shay said with delight. With a cleft chin, Lena snapped her fingers in happy remembrance. And he had a scar on his cheek like so. She shows to the room where the scar was located. The guards, eunuchs, and Madame Frida all blanch. Madame Frida looked at the triumphant look on Anya's face. She knew that the girls let the other walk them into a trap. Your impertinence knows no bounds, ladies. 20 lashes for both of you right now in the courtyard, the deputy chief eunuch declared. The stupid girls ran into His Majesty last night and didn't know it. And a closer eye on your girls from this day forward, madam, the deputy said, signaling his two men to get the begging and sobbing Lena and Shay to be whipped. All right, everyone, get back to work, Madame Frida announced. The seamstresses all went back to work in silence. They could clearly hear the whip hitting the girls and their cries. 20 lashes they each received, and then silence. Just the footsteps of the eunuchs leaving. Lena and Shay walked in slowly, and Madame Frida ordered them to go to the physician and take the day off until they heal. Madame Frida walked to Anya's workstation. Follow me, she ordered, and turned away. The tone brooked no doubt that Anya was in trouble as well. The two women entered Madame Frida's office, and she sat on her chair, leaving Anya standing. Now tell me where you really went last night. The older woman broke the silence. As I said earlier, Anya's words were cut off by Madame Frida's raised hand. Don't feed me that rubbish, Anya. It is an insult. I entered the hall of meditation a few seconds before the downpour. I was alone in there the whole time. So let's try again. Where did you go? A resigned look covered Anya's face. I was with a soldier last night, Lieutenant Gert Grenville. So you were having an illicit meeting? No, madam. My meeting with him was purely coincidental and not illicit at all. I was going to see the gate record keeper. I hope this story will compromise you less as you keep telling it. Gert was my brother's best friend. My brother and father were murdered 7 months ago, on the day my brother came from the campaign of the Piran. I have reason to believe that the murderer is right here in this palace. I went to the records keeper last night to see who left the palace after he did. she said. Anya's words were met with silence, so she continued. Is it wrong to seek justice for my brother and father, madam? My poor mama died a few hours later of a broken heart. In a very short space of time, I lost my beloved brother, father, and mother. Tears streaked down Anya's eyes. The wound was still fresh in her heart. Is it wrong to want to find the people who destroyed my family, madam? Her voice thick with emotion, Madame Frida sat back and thought. Who was your brother? Lieutenant Milo Webb. A sad smile crossed Frida's face. I heard about his death. They say thieves did it. Anya shook her head in denial. No, madam. Thieves would have stolen their money as well, but that night only their lives were stolen. Madame Frida looked at the girl pitifully. Grief was making her seek vengeance for something that doesn't exist. And did you find anything? Yes, Anya answered, not sure if she could trust Madame Frida with the information she found. The older woman smiled kindly. You don't trust me, which means someone in a high position is involved. Pardon me, madam, I am new in this place and I don't know who it is I can trust, she answered honestly. You just have to take a chance. A silence embraced the small room after the words were uttered. The person who signed out had the plank of the Dowager Grand Concubine Lady Hyra. The soft words left Anya's mouth. Alarm raised on Madame Frida's face. She grabbed the purple ribbon with a silver lion on it. The badge was lying among other many-colored trinkets hanging on her belt. Anya wondered how she never saw that badge before. Her and Marjorie received a similar one after her brother's death. The silver lion is given to families of dead soldiers. Who did Madame Frida lose? Was it a husband, son, or brother? Anya couldn't be sure, but one thing she could be sure about was that the Dowager was involved in her beloved's death. The Dowager is a very powerful woman, Anya, not only in this marble palace, but also the Empire. Though she comes from a humble background, she has amassed so much power and influence over the years, she warned. Madam, I have no idea who it is that killed my brother, only that they came from the Dowager's residence. Unless you know something I don't, I am assuming the person who killed my brother is not the Dowager, Anya said. Madame Frida unhooked the silver lion and showed it to Anya. I'm sure you are familiar with that, she murmured softly. Anya reached out and touched the still warm lion. Who was it? My son, Nigel. He was the junior to the Emperor's assistant. He died at Piran from poisoning. The poison, which I believe was ordered for the Emperor by the Dowager Grand Concubine. The words left Frida's mouth for the first time. How do you know that? She once whispered to my son that he doesn't have to taste every morsel of food that the Emperor is served. She can provide him with every delicacy he would want if he missed a meal. All he had to do was inform her when he will not be vigilant with his tasting. The suggestion from the Dowager Grand Concubine was very subtle and can easily be twisted into whatever she wanted it to be had the accusation come to light. He confided in me the day before he left for the Piran. Needless to say, after the poisoning attempt failed, His Majesty was almost stabbed to death in his sleep, Madame Frida finished. Do you think Milo came upon her plot? That's why she had him and my father killed? Yes, that's very possible. To what end does the Dowager want to eliminate the Emperor? Anya's curiosity was piqued. She has 2 grown sons herself, the eldest one very close in age with His Majesty, only a few days younger, and he has 5 male heirs where His Majesty has none. Madame Frida's words were met with silence from Anya. Do you now realize the extent of your revenge, Anya, and how foolhardy it is? I realize, madam, that my enemies are powerful, and in my humble position, I can only act like a viper by striking the elephant once and with a deadly poison, she said stubbornly. How far are you willing to go to seek out revenge, Anya? To the underbelly of Hades itself, madam. And if you lose your life? Don't you have family you want to protect? I have a sister, but she has a family of her own already, and I don't care much for my life, madam. A huge part of me died when my brother and parents died. If I die in the course of seeking justice, then I will be happy. The Dowager, Madame Frida paused, trying to find the best words to describe her. She is said to be a gentlewoman who is well loved. Just remember that when you begin your campaign against her. Giroux stood from his chair, stretching and hearing the satisfying cracking sound of his bones. He had been attending first to war matters for the majority of the night, and after a few hours of sleep, the arduous duties of the Empire. Being on the battlefield was less stressful. At least then, all he had to worry about was keeping his men alive and winning the war. Now, he had to make sure even the air his people were breathing was safe. Last night his walk was interrupted by those annoying maids, which reminded him. Thancred, find me that woman from last night and bring her to me post-haste, he commanded. Thancred, his secretary, looked lost for a moment. A wise choice, Your Majesty, after the tiring night you've had. A concubine to ease your mind is coming right away to your chambers. The only woman he could remember was the new concubine, Ava, whom His Majesty ran into last night. You are not listening to me, old man. I said the woman, not my concubines. I believe she works in the outer palace, he said with mild impatience. His secretary was getting old. Thancred had served him since he was a young boy. When he thought about it, the man had been old as far as he could remember. The one I found bowing in the outer palace road? He asked with shock. He couldn't remember the wench even if she came and slapped him on his face right now. Brilliant, Your Majesty. But as you know, my sight is highly failing. Maybe if I could get a description, it would help greatly. Giroud took a deep breath. Dark hair, very dark like the night sky without stars. Her hair looks like it absorbs light, and it is simply braided to fall behind her back like all of the women. Soft, plump red lips and eyes. Her eyes are full of mischief, very green. They look like she can outsmart the devil himself. He described the face that had been occupying the back of his mind since they met. Very well, sire. I will find the maid and have her prepared for you in your chambers. How does that sound, sire? Giroud looked at the elderly man in horror. He had enough women for that. Who told you I want her to join me in my chambers? I want you to bring her here so that she can be lashed. Concern was plastered on Thancred's face while following his majesty close behind. Lashed, my liege? May I ask why? The little minx played a trick on me last night. She must pay, he said in a low voice as they entered the imperial garden. Then I will have her lashed, sire, and kicked out of the palace right away. Giroud stopped walking immediately. No, don't kick her out, man. Just bring her to me. I will prescribe the lashes, and I want to see her cry out an apology, he said in satisfaction. Then right away, sire, Thancred said, nodding to his junior Sorel to carry out the search. Feminine voices were coming from the other side of the garden. Giroud's heart dropped. He was hoping for a day without running into any of his women. The women appeared, and none of them were his concubines. It was the Grand Dowager instead. They headed in his direction and all bowed to him. Greetings, Your Majesty. Isn't it a glorious afternoon? The mother to his brothers asked. Indeed it is. How are you faring, my lady? He asked. She extended her hand, and he took it while they walked. Very well, Your Majesty. These bones might be old, but they still hold energy and life. I saw your new concubine. A beautiful creature she is. Thank you, my lady. Yes. And I heard Lady Iveta is with child. Congratulations, she murmured. The news was just told to him last night before his walk. He wondered who told the Grand Dowager. Thank you, he repeated again. This will shut all the naysayers once she gives birth to a son. I will be praying for one when I enter the meditation temple, her soft, gentle voice said. Thank you for your kindness. He remembered he had to pay a visit to Lady Iveta. I will leave you to your walk now. Forgive my interruption, my lady, he said. The dowager bowed as he left, the perpetual smile on her face never cracking. Inside, a burning anger was ablaze. Every day Giroud breathed was another day her son was not in power. As of now, Tedric was just a measly governor of one of the provinces, a position Giroud gave him. Giroud reached a considerable distance away from the dowager's entourage, her words replaying, and he scoffed. If Lady Iveta had a son, then the murmurs will stop, murmurs that all originate from her palace, he said to Thancred. She hides her ambition well, the dowager. However, a fact still remains that after 10 years of ruling, His Majesty still has no male heir, Thancred said, to the annoyance of Giroud, who bit his jaw hard. The words his companion had said were true. His lack of an heir made his rule weak, especially since his brother had sons in abundance. Tell me honestly, Thancred, is it me with the problem? Why can't I sire living sons? He asked the question solemnly. No, Your Majesty, impossible, the man answered, then paused. I usually like to visit the city and see how the locals stay. One thing that amazes me is the number of children the womenfolk seem to be able to bear. One I met had 8 sons, he said in amazement. 8? One woman? Yes, one woman, Your Majesty. With 3 daughters. Giroud whistled in amazement. He was born and raised in the Marble Palace. The maximum number of children women in the harem usually had was 2. They never seemed to get past that number. So I was thinking, Your Majesty, the women who grace your harem, though accomplished in beauty and feminine arts, were raised as delicate flowers. Last summer the heat was on the high side, and I heard 3 of your concubines fainted. What are you trying to say, man? Giroud asked. Maybe try picking a concubine from one of the locals. Noble women seem not to be strong enough to bear an imperial heir, the older man suggested. The idea seemed harmless enough, and he continued to think about it as he walked to his pregnant concubine's palace. Give Shala your work. We have been summoned to concubine Iveta's palace. She is with child and will need to make new clothes and do some adjustments on some of the ones she already has. The senior seamstresses are flooded with work, so we have to step in to help, Madame Frida said to Anya. She nodded and packed her sewing equipment. An older seamstress took over looking after the remaining ladies. Lena and Shay were still healing from the beating they got yesterday. Most girls had decided to give Anya a wide berth, realizing their lives would be easier if they did that. The two seamstresses entered the gates of the inner palace and headed to the Mauve Palace, the official residence of concubine Iveta. As they entered, they found the imperial guards that guard His Majesty standing outside. Lady Iveta's handmaid walked towards the two seamstresses, and when she spotted them, an apologetic smile appeared on her face. His Majesty is in residence. I doubt her ladyship will be able to see you, Solove warned the two. I will ask her when you can come back, she finished, and walked away back inside. Solove went cautiously to her mistress, who seemed to be glowing under His Majesty's attention. The seamstresses were expected, but not His Majesty. Tell them to come back tomorrow at the same time, Iveta whispered back, the words low enough that Giroux didn't hear them. Is there something amiss, my lady? He asked. Iveta smiled nervously. Even though His Majesty was always kind with her, she still felt giddy and nervous every time she was around him. It's just the seamstresses, Your Majesty. They came to make me new gowns as I won't be able to fit in the ones I have soon, she said, with a blush appearing on her cheeks. Don't send them away. Let them come in and do what they came here to do, he said. Iveta nodded to Solove to carry out the instructions. Giroux's attention was caught by some artwork on the wall. He enjoyed Iveta's company and palace. She didn't bother him with asking for favors for a family member or a promotion for herself. The two seamstresses entered and bowed deeply to Giroux, who beckoned them to stand. He then spotted her, the invader of his thoughts. Today the minx was keeping her head and eyes downcast. She had none of that sauciness she showed him last night. This is Anya, my lady, and she will take your measurements, Madame Frida said to Iveta. Iveta stood up and smiled kindly for Anya to approach. Anya began to measure Lady Iveta, while Madame Frida was picking out the best materials and colors to suit her ladyship. Solove then announced new visitors, the grand concubine Lady Ainor and Lady Ava. Giroux turned to Iveta with a lazy smile. You seem to be quite popular, my lady. His deep timbre voice resonated. Anya caught the mocking tone, and for the first time looked up to His Majesty, only to find his gray-colored eyes looking piercingly at her. She quickly looked away, dedicating all her attention to her ladyship. The two concubines entered the room, the two beauties of His Majesty's harem, fully decked out in beautifully embroidered and sewn robes, gold on their ears. Pampered is the word that came to Anya's mind, as she paused her duties to bow to them. The two ladies bowed to His Majesty in greeting. Your Majesty, what a delight to see you here. Ava and I decided to come and see how our dear sister is faring. Pregnancy can be a draining experience, she told him. Indeed, my lady, Giroux answered. The room took on a silence as the seamstresses continued their work. Giroux's attention was on the younger seamstress. The action didn't go unnoticed by all the women in the room apart from Anya. What interesting hair color you have, my dear. The last time I saw that was on the head of a circus performer, Ava commented to Anya. Anya looked up, surprised she was being spoken to. She looked up to Lucia, who was standing next to Ava, and raised her eyebrow. Yes, I was born in a circus actually, my lady, she answered softly. Interesting. How did you end up in the Marble Palace? Ainor asked with a smirk on her face. I was abandoned when I was probably not even 3 summers and taken in by a kind couple who then raised me alongside their children. It amazes me the levels of kindness peasants can display. Something we can all emulate. I'm sure your parents must be proud of you, as you must have achieved a lot to them, Ava said. They are late, my lady, but I can't claim to be the most accomplished. My brother was a lieutenant in His Majesty's army, Anya answered her. Giroux raised his eyebrows. Really? What was his name? Lieutenant Milo Webb, Your Majesty, she said, turning to him. Giroux remembered Milo, a bright young man who had a strong future in the army. A skilled warrior. My condolences on his death. Your brother was among the best of men I have ever worked with. Thank you, Your Majesty, Anya said, and continued her work. A new temple of meditation is being opened. As per tradition, it ought to be the Empress who commissions it, Ainor said. His Majesty had been particularly dragging his feet in choosing a new empress since the last one died in childbirth 2 years ago. I will leave you to your day, my lady. I have matters I have to attend to, Giroux told Iveta and left. The peaceful environment the Mauve Palace had was ruined by the 2 new concubines. Ainor assumed she would be the next empress. In the beginning, Giroux did too, but he was not sure anymore. Her family was gaining too much power in the empire, and her brother was already a grand magistrate. Though fully qualified for the position, Rolf was a Percival, and Giroux could not give another Percival a high-ranking position. Ainor was the mother of his 3-year-old daughter and good bed sport, but not good company to keep around at times, especially if she wanted something from him. Usually what she asked for was something terribly high-priced. The remaining ladies sat in silence until Ava began to speak again. You have such an interesting story. I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. Anya. Anya, is it? Do you have any memory of the circus? She asked. Yes, it is of my birth mother. She was one of those performers who stands on a moving horse. She broke her neck while practicing a set, Anya said, gloomily. That is my only memory. The expression on Ava's face was of horror, not expecting the answer. She was expecting to receive some information she could twist to put down Anya. A burning jealousy was growing in her. His Majesty had not made his interest in the dark beauty a secret. Though Ava and Aenor's beauty was said to be unmatched, they both in a way looked alike, both of similar body stature and blue-eye color like a majority of the Dune beauties. Anya's vivid beauty stood alone and unmatched in the harem. I hope you deliver the child safely. Of the 2 pregnant women we had 2 years ago, one died with her child still in her belly, and the other one had a miscarriage, Aenor commented lazily. She knew Yvetta had been in the harem long enough to know of the 2 unfortunate events. Aenor's mind had drifted to the young seamstress, but the measly girl was no match to her power and influence to be actually considered a threat. She let Ava, who was still young, expose her apparent interest and jealousy to speak to the girl. Her threat was Yvetta if she bore a son. Yvetta blanched, thoughts and dreams of dying or losing her child occupying her waking and sleeping moments. I hope to avoid the unfortunate circumstances that have graced my predecessors, she whispered. Anya took pity on the woman. The other 2 had clearly not come to comfort and congratulate their friend. Take courage, my lady, you will be fine. I have a sister who I am sure has given birth now, and she always did her best to keep her spirits high, exercised and ate lots of fruit. She said the baby will only be healthy if the mother is happy and healthy. Anya joined the conversation uninvited. A smile appeared on Yvetta's face. Is that so? Either way, peasant women cannot be likened to a gently bred woman like Yvetta, Aenor said, annoyed with the seamstress. Women are women, my lady. Whether peasant or not, my lady will be fine if she does everything to keep herself strong and happy. Aenor threw back her head in mock laughter. Wow. We have a gem among us, a physician's seamstress. I wouldn't get advice from someone who hasn't borne a child, and a seamstress at that, if I were you, Yvetta. Aenor's face turned serious. I'm bored. I'm going to seek more riveting company than this, she said. Ava stood as well, and the 2 left without a word. Anya and Madame Frida were discussing the best designs that would flatter Lady Yvetta as they were heading back when they found a lineup of maids in the outer palace courtyard. Anya almost passed by when she was stopped. You, join the line, the inner palace guard commanded. Pardon me, sir, but what has she done? Madame Frida asked. We are looking for someone. Inner palace business, he answered her dismissively. Anya nodded to Madame Frida, and she quietly walked away. Anya noticed one thing about all the girls lined up. They were all dark-haired. Some with brown hair were immediately dismissed. A man, not a guard, came in front of her and inspected her. His eyes were piercing, and Anya stared at him unblinkingly. He gave her a small, triumphant smile. You stand over there, he said. Anya left the lineup and stood aside. Only 2 other girls from different departments stood next to her. All of them had a similar look. Dark hair, not the usual Dune look. Follow me, the leader clearly said. It is good to have you back after the tour you took. I received your reports about the various judicial borders and how they can be improved. You did a good, impeccable job, Giroux commended. Rolf bowed after receiving the commendation. Thank you, Your Majesty, he said. He had been working exceptionally hard, because most people were whispering that he only got the promotion because of his sister's high rank in the harem. There might be some truth in that, but being a 3rd son, he knew he would always have to work harder than his elder brothers. Gert stood at attention next to Rolf, just finishing his report to His Majesty as well. He highly respected the man next to him. He had run into him a few times while performing his duties, and was impressed with his thoroughness. Junior Secretary Sorel entered and whispered in His Majesty's ear. Giroux chuckled. The woman must be wondering what he had brought her here for. That will be all for today, gentlemen, he said. He knew where the woman was found, but it seemed his men had found her too after the command he gave. The 2 men bowed and left the room. As they walked outside, they found 2 women outside. One of them was familiar to both the lieutenant and grand magistrate. Sorel, what does His Majesty need from these women? Rolf asked. A smirk appeared on the junior secretary's face. He was exceptionally proud of himself that he had managed to find the woman in such a short time. One of those 2 women disrespected His Majesty. He is planning to have her lashed within an inch of her life, he announced. Both men blanched as they realized who of the 2 would have done that. Though Rolf met the young woman once when she was grief-stricken and searching for her brother and father's killer, she stuck in his mind. He undertook a small investigation, and the arrows pointed him to the Marble Palace, the Dowager Grand Concubine to be specific, and he abandoned the search for truth. He only hoped that her appearance at the palace was not linked to her seeking justice. If the murder was ordered by Her Highness, then she could never have the justice she craved. Anya entered the large, stately room. Behind the large desk and chair hung large family emblems of nobles, and in the middle, on red silk, was the golden dragon with crisscrossed knives, which represented the Ranald family symbol, the current emperor being the fifth Ranald to be on the throne. Anya was entranced at the intricacy and detail the dragon and daggers were sewn on silk. Her amazement made her forget that she was in the emperor's office, and her companion had already spotted the emperor and knelt. A voice cleared behind her, making her snap out of her admiration, and Anya's eyes immediately landed on the emperor. All blood rushed from her head, and she felt like she could almost faint. When she bowed, it was with a wobbly and uncertain stance. "You," Giroux said to the other girl. "You may go," he commanded, and the girl did not need to be told twice as she scampered away in relief. Anya remained alone as Giroux stood in front of her. He waited for her to recover herself before he spoke again. "Rise and stand over there," he ordered her. Outside, the relieved maid ran into the hard muscle mass that was Gert. "Tell me, wench, where is your companion?" The girl shook her head. "With His Majesty. He is quite angry," she narrated before quickly walking off. Gert's stomach turned. If anything happened to Anya, he would never forgive himself. Mind already made up, he walked back into His Majesty's residence. Thancred was surprised to see him back so quickly. "Is anything amiss, Lieutenant?" Gert's eyes were fixed on the door. "Yes, I need to see His Majesty immediately." Thancred was not sure if he could interrupt His Majesty with the wench he vowed he would make suffer, but Gert never asked to see His Majesty unless he had important news. The decision for Thancred was made in a snap, and he walked in, only to find His Majesty answering some correspondence and the entrancing wench standing a good distance away from him. "Lieutenant Grenville is here for you once more," Thancred said in a low voice. Giroux stopped writing and looked up. "Let him in." Thancred left, and looking grim, Gert entered, his eyes on Anya. "Forgive my forwardness, Your Majesty, but please, I have come to beg you to spare Anya, Your Majesty. Please," he said ineloquently. Giroux looked at the bowing soldier and the unimpressed look on Anya's face. He wondered what connection the two had. From what he knew, Gert preferred the company of men. People with such preferences had set choices on the sex of the partner. "Lieutenant Webb," he whispered only for himself to hear. The two were close friends. The young man probably felt a responsibility towards his dead friend's sister. A maid entered and brought fresh-cut fruit for His Majesty. Her eyes widened when she spotted Anya, and she quickly ran out, wringing her fingers after she placed the food in elegantly, wondering how Anya, who had just entered the palace, managed to get into what looked to be trouble with His Majesty. It was just last week when Olivia received a message from Marjorie telling her that Anya was in the palace, and she was begging her to look after the girl. Anya had always been a wild girl, but Olivia didn't think she would get into trouble before she had a chance to speak with her. The Webbs had always treated Anya with great affection, especially Milo. And it was for Milo that Olivia turned around back to the Emperor's office. Outside, she met a waiting Chief Magistrate Percival. Inside the room, Giroux let the silence get pregnant, making everyone apart from him uncomfortable. He picked up an apple and bit into it as he sat back in his chair. The only sound being heard was the crunch of the apple being eaten. The silence continued until he finished the apple. "You are dismissed, Lieutenant." He flicked his hand. Gert stood up, torn between vow and command. The soldier in him won in the end, and he left the room, chastising himself for being weak and not defending Anya enough. He found a surprised Rolf outside. Of the two men, Rolf had left and went in the direction of his sister's residence. He turned back halfway, a part of him wanting to rescue Anya. "You may go in," Thancred told Rolf as Gert walked away. "Yes?" is the response he received from His Majesty after he entered. He immediately bowed as well. "Your Majesty, I have come to request for mercy and leniency on Miss Anya Webb's behalf. Please, Your Majesty," he begged as well. This one shocked Anya as well, because she did not even know this man. He seemed vaguely familiar, but she could not place where she met him. Giroux chuckled. "You offend me, Rolf. That you think I am an unjust ruler," he said. The words stunned Rolf. "Of course not, Your Majesty. Please forgive my impertinence. You are a highly just and wise ruler," he apologized profusely. "And yet you are here?" he commented lazily, his eyes drifting to Anya. He understood the connection between Anya and Gert, but Rolf? "Your Majesty," Rolf began. "You are dismissed, Grand Magistrate," Giroux cut him off. Like Gert, Rolf stood and left the room, highly disappointed in himself. The next person who entered was a maid in his palace. The amused expression on Thancred's face showed he knew what was about to happen. Olivia knelt in front of His Majesty. "Sire, please, I beg you to have mercy on Anya. She has always been an impulsive and stupid girl. I will make her behave herself from now on, Your Majesty. Show mercy, please." He looked at Olivia the same way you would look at a human with two heads. Olivia's burst of confidence fizzled, and she started to wring her hands nervously again. You may leave, woman, Giroux dismissed her. Olivia scampered and gave an apologetic look to Anya, apologizing for not rescuing her. Giroux burst into laughter. What did the mousy maid think she would do? Goodness, Thancred, will you be next to beg for Anya's life? He asked in jest. Disappointingly, Your Majesty, I do not know Miss Webb enough to do that, he commented in his dry, monotone voice. We have a popular one with us. Let's see if anyone else comes to beg for her, Giroux commented in absolute amusement as he got back to answering correspondence. Solove, Lady Ivetta's handmaid, entered the workroom. She went to Madame Frida with a smile. My lady hasn't been able to stop talking about Anya, madam. She has requested if it is possible to have her transferred to Mauve Palace for service there. A small, sad smile appeared on Madame Frida's face. Of course, however, Anya has been taken to the Golden Palace to be before His Majesty. Solove's eyebrows rose in astonishment. So she is to be a concubine? She asked. Madame Frida shook her head. No, not at all. Anya ran into His Majesty last night and mistook him for a guard. That offended His Majesty, and he wants to punish her. Poor Anya didn't know it was His Majesty, her being new to the palace and all. Madame Frida said. The handmaid nodded her head. It was truly unfortunate for the girl. It was a mistake any new person could have made in this palace. I will speak to my lady. Maybe she could speak for Anya, she said, then left. Madame Frida gave instructions to the girls, and she headed for the Golden Palace. She could not sit back while the poor girl was punished. She also knew Anya was the only means she would be able to get justice for her son. The guards asked her what her business was and immediately let her in. These were men who served with her son not so long ago. Thancred announced her, and Frida bowed before His Majesty. Greetings, Your Majesty, she said in a low, respectful tone. Please rise, madam, he said. He respected the older woman greatly because her son was loyal and diligent with his duties, and he died while protecting him. How may I be of help, madam? He asked her after she rose, even if he knew why she was there. She was with Anya this morning in the Mauve Palace. Your Majesty told me once that if I ever need a favor, all I had to do was ask, and he will grant it. I have a favor to ask, sire, she said, her eyes averted in respect. What is it, madam? I am in no position to ask you to change decisions you have made, but I had come to ask for you to ask for leniency, Your Majesty. I do not know what transpired last night, but I know it was done without malice. Please let Anya go, she stated her plea. You would use the favor I owe you on her? He asked, perplexed. She is a child without a mother, and I am a mother without a child. Isn't it natural that I am drawn to her? Giroux took a deep breath. Fine, madam, I will let her go, but not just yet. I will let her stand here for a few hours while she meditates on her crime. May the three gods of justice hear me now when I say your vow has been repaid, Your Majesty. Madame Frida bowed once more. Not even close, madam. You may leave, he said. A small, calm smile touched her lips as she left. Her presence always gave Giroux discomfort since her son passed. She seemed to be a former shell of who she was. Anya looked at Giroux. He was different with Madame Frida. He gave her a lot of respect and tenderness. Giroux rubbed his face and found Anya looking at him. What are you ogling at? He asked in annoyance. She quickly averted her eyes elsewhere. You have not spoken since you entered this place. You seem to have lost your voice. Good, I prefer the quiet too, he said, getting back to his tedious work. These were times he missed the battlefield. It was less tedious than sitting in this room the whole day writing and making decisions for millions of people under his rule. He scoffed when he thought how the wench might think she was being punished by standing where she is. He would gladly switch places with her. As the sun was setting, Anya looked at the various colors it was emitting. To capture those colors in their glory on paper would be majestic. She could hear the Emperor's deep voice, talking to his advisor and secretary, Thancred. Her stomach growled loudly, and the two men paused in whatever they were discussing. Giroux looked at her in satisfaction. It would not be long before she started to beg for mercy. A hungry stomach can do that even to the proudest humans. Olivia entered the room once more, and started to light the lamps in the room. A sad look was on her face, which did not go unnoticed by the people in the room. She was usually a jovial girl, but not today, not now. Have the kitchen skipped to give you your meal? Giroux asked the maid. Olivia once again got on her knees. Your Majesty, I have known Anya since she was a wee girl. She was incredibly spoilt by her parents, especially because she looked like a little doll when she was smaller, but she is a good girl. Very loyal and caring. It is currently only her and her sister Marjorie who survive in her family. If you execute Anya, Marjorie will die of sadness, Your Majesty. She will simply die, which will be a shame, as she has a wee boy who she just gave birth to. How can such a small thing survive without its mother? It will die too. Her husband Tanner, Marjorie is all he has in this world. If she dies and her son dies, he will die too, Your Majesty. Everyone will die, she finished with a broken, small voice. Giroux looked at Thancred with surprise. Execute? Did you know about this execution, Thancred? The older man shook his head, but Olivia continued. Yes, your majesty, please don't execute Anya. All the servants are whispering about it. How her head will be cut off before midnight, she said. You may leave, child, Thancred told Olivia, who went away. I will not be surprised, your majesty, that by now the rumors are of you dismembering Miss Webb personally, Thancred commented. Fascinating, he said. Junior Secretary Cyril entered and whispered in his majesty's ear. Giroux nodded, and in entered Lady Avetta. She bowed and, with a calm smile on her face, said, with a fear of this turning into a complete circus, your majesty, I have come to beg for Anya's pardon. It had spread around the Marble Palace how people were asking for the Emperor's mercy. The number was being greatly exaggerated, as well as the story and punishment to be implemented. The only thing that hadn't been spread, apparently, was the pardon he had granted a few hours earlier. Giroux, exhausted from the long day, looked over at Anya. She had been shifting her weight from one foot to the other. She seemed drained of energy. Your Majesty, I will completely vouch for her and watch that she behaves while staying in the Mauve Palace, Iveta added. Very well, my lady. He turned to Anya before adding, You better behave yourself from now on. Know and give respect to your superiors, he said. Anya went and stood in front of Giroux, the spark of mischief still bright in her eyes. Thank you for your mercy, your Majesty. However, wasn't the whole purpose of your disguise to ensure that no one recognizes you? She commented in a low voice, and everyone's eyes bulged out in shock at the young woman's impertinence. Giroux stood up swiftly from his chair. Anya stood as well and stepped back. I shall remove her from your presence now, your Majesty, Lady Iveta said quickly, shocked by Anya's words. Giroux looked at Thancred in shock. He had never met anyone with so much audacity in his life. The older man, too, was shocked by the girl's words. She seemed intent on losing her head. Luckily, Lady Iveta had enough common sense to drag Anya out. When they left the Golden Palace, Anya bowed to Lady Iveta in thanks. I cannot express how much I thank you, my lady, she said. Iveta looked at the young maid quietly. Why would you try His Majesty so? Anya looked around in the dark night. She did not know why she had wanted to tempt His Majesty in such a manner. I am a thoughtless human, my lady. I let my mouth get ahead of me. I will bridle my tongue from now on. I beg your forgiveness, she said. Iveta nodded her head. I hope so, because I promised His Majesty to make sure you stay on the straight and narrow path. That is the only reason why he let you go, Iveta said. Anya looked down, almost scoffing at the woman. Nobles really did think too much of themselves. His Majesty had granted her release before she came. And I thank you for your kindness, madam. I have asked Madame Frida to transfer you to the Mauve Palace. You will serve under me now, and after today, you owe me your life, she said. Anya lit up, finally, away into the inner palace. Oh, thank you, my lady. I promise to do my best to serve you, she exclaimed. Go now and get some rest. You must report to my palace first thing in the morning tomorrow, Iveta stated, and walked away. After today, she felt sure the impulsive girl would be loyal to her. As Anya walked to the outer palace, she stopped to look at the moon. The Dunes worshipped a god of their choice. Anya had always loved the moon, and hence she chose the moon goddess as her deity, Muila, the mother of the night children. She was not a devout follower of the goddess, because a large part of her doubted the existence of the deities. They were created by the nobles to keep peasants in line. When Anya entered the dormitory once more, the girls were surprised to see her appear again. Are you a witch, Anya? This is the second time you have escaped punishment for your wrongdoing, Shay asked while lying on her stomach. I hear traveling circus performers are all skilled in magic and curses. No wonder they are able to perform such powerful stunts, Karina, another seamstress, said. Anya stepped close to her. Exactly. But yet you stand here in front of me without fear and speak to me. Aren't you scared I might summon the 7 devils from the 8th level of hell right now to show themselves to you all? She whispered in a sinister manner. The dormitory was dimly lit, and some girls started imagining that shadows were moving. Boom! Anya said the word softly but loud enough to cause fear. At the same moment, the dormitory door opened widely, startling all the girls so much that most of them screamed at the top of their voices. In walked the displeased face of Madame Frida. Everyone in bed right now, apart from you, Anya. The girls all went to their beds, and Madame Frida turned her attention back on Anya. Tomorrow, you move to the Mauve Palace. You will be residing in the inner palace from now on. The girls all gasped, wondering at the unfairness of the situation. Madame Frida. How unfair it is that Anya, a troublemaker, and what I suppose is a witch, is going to be promoted to the inner palace. It is not fair, Madame Frida, not fair at all, Lena pouted while lying on her stomach. I would think the beating you received taught you to think first, then speak later. Anya was chosen by Lady Avetta herself, Would you like to go and tell the esteemed lady that she was wrong in her choice? I'm sure you know where the Mauve Palace is. And let me remind you that as per your story, it is your fault Anya got into trouble, as it was you who summoned His Majesty. Madame Frida fired off at the girl, who at least had the ability to look chastised. Prepare for bed. You will leave in the morning, and I don't want to hear another squeak from this room, Madame Frida said, and left the girls alone. They all lay quietly while Anya changed for bed. Tomorrow, she would be another step closer to avenging her family. The Grand Dowager laughed, her head thrown back in mirth at the anecdote her handmaiden was sharing with her. Her youngest son entered the room and bowed to his mother. Mother, it is good to see you in such high spirits. He threw himself onto a seat next to hers, then grabbed a bunch of grapes, plopping one juicy ball into his mouth after the other. Quite so, my boy. Did you hear the circus that was at the Golden Palace yesterday? She asked in joy. Anything that caused Giroux discomfort brought her joy. I heard something about a disrespectful wench. Has she been beheaded yet? Elliot asked with half-interest. He loved his brother Giroux, who let him alone to go about his ways, unlike his mother, who was always pressuring him to reach for office and be more serious like his elder brother. Giroux let him be, and told him that he would be willing to help him achieve his dream whenever he might want to, and whatever it might be. He did not understand his mother's distaste for Giroux. He was kind and devoted to her like a son. No, it seems after all that begging from different people, the person who was able to turn his ear was Lady Iveta. I didn't know the mousy wench had it in her. She looked like she was always about to expire from fear of even her own shadow, Lady Hyra commented while conjuring up the image of the concubine. She might be meek, but it is possible she is currently carrying the imperial heir. I'm sure His Majesty is also hoping for that, Elliot said. Or she might die like all the others, or give birth to a dead son, Hyra said with irritation. Her youngest son's affection for his brother annoyed her greatly. To Elliot, Giroux could never do any wrong. Tedric, her oldest and favorite son, entered. He bowed and sat opposite to her and his brother. You look well, mother. Yes, I am quite well, my boy. I was just sharing with your insufferable brother about what happened at the Golden Palace yesterday, she said with a smile returned to her face. I hear the girl is a terrible beauty, he said. Hira's smile faltered. Her son collected pretty women like a hobby, a habit that didn't seem to reduce even as he grew older. You can ask brother to give her to you as your concubine, Elliot suggested mockingly. Tedric already had enough concubines, more than the emperor. Their mother indulged his collection of women in the beginning, but now she had stopped. The idea was already an attractive one to Tedric as he began to think of it. Giroux was extremely generous to him. Don't even think about it. You already have too many women, Tedric. Can you start acting like the son of a great emperor and not a son of a whoremonger? She spat out. Calm down, mother. We are only jesting. Tedric is not thinking of adding more to his household. Elliot tried to smooth the situation. Hira's earlier happy mood failed to return. It was at times like these that she wondered if it was really worth it to kill all those people in order to pave a way for her son to acquire the Dunbria throne. He and Giroux were born only a week apart, had the same tutors when growing up, and ate the same food. But somehow, Giroux was more responsible and level-headed than her son. Iveta was sitting on the patio of her residence. It was a pleasant winter day, and she could see Anya in the distance watering some plants. The girl was interesting enough for company, but it was not her conversation she sought when she went before the emperor to ask for mercy on her behalf. It was obvious to everyone in the room that day when Ava had been taking her measurements that His Majesty was enchanted with her beauty. Had he been looking at her for the crime she supposedly committed, he would have had her arrested on sight. She spent the rest of the day in his office instead of being thrown in the palace confinement rooms. Rumors of her arrest in the Golden Palace had spread wide and fast. Her sending of Solove to the seamstress department was to get more information and confirm the girl really was arrested. She thought bringing the girl would make the emperor visit her more, but the plan seemed futile now. He hadn't stepped in the Mauve Palace the 2 weeks Anya had been here. If she could, Iveta would send the girl back, but she was seen to have shown great compassion to the girl and promised to mold her into a respectful human being. Sending her away now would make her look like a pretentious failure. The emperor was not the only one who had kept away. Even the other concubines had shied away. That fact was causing Iveta annoyance, as she was ready to show them just how much she was favored by the emperor. He did, after all, release a prisoner that offended him at her request. Solove, no one came for me today while I was taking my noon nap? She asked, hoping a concubine came and was turned away. No, my lady. His Majesty did send his junior secretary to know of your health today, though, Solove added quickly. She could tell the reward her lady thought would be afforded her from the emperor and fellow concubines when she took in Anya had not been received. They all ignored her now, just like he has done these past 2 weeks, she murmured, her attention on the dark-haired, green-eyed girl walking towards her. Good afternoon, my lady. I hope you had a pleasant nap, Anya said gaily. Yes, it was as pleasant as a nap could be. Solove, tell me, she paused, thinking. What day could it be today? It is Tuesday, my lady, Solove answered. Good. Help me dress up. We are going to the Saffron Palace. I feel like a round of cards. Ready my gold as well. Iveta gave the instruction to Solove. If they wouldn't come to her, she would go to them. Lady Aenor held a game of cards in the afternoon this day every week. Iveta had rarely attended, as she found cards to be boring, but not today. Anya tried hard not to look surprised. Gambling was abhorred by His Majesty. The practice was highly frowned upon, and one of the rules that were drilled in them when entering the Marble Palace was that casting lots and betting were highly forbidden. You have something to say, Anya? Iveta asked. All one needed to know about Anya was to look in her eyes. They conveyed a great amount of emotion. Anya looked down. My lady, I would never question your judgment, however. I was under the impression that gambling was forbidden in the Marble Palace. You are right, Anya. You must never question my judgment. Remember who you are speaking to, and that you owe me your life, Iveta finished and walked away. The maid was right, of course, but something about her irked Iveta. She had made a terribly impulsive decision to bring her into the Mauve Palace. Anya went about her duties when Lady Iveta appeared from her bedchambers again. She was fully dressed like she was going to meet the Emperor in her best silks. I want Anya to escort me to the Saffron Palace. You will stay behind, Solove, Iveta said. Anya straightened herself, and as her lady got on a sedan being pulled by a single horse, the vehicle only had one plush chair for her ladyship. The quiet eunuch led the horse to the Saffron Palace, after he received instructions from Anya, who walked beside her lady. The journey was quiet, and Anya let her mind wander. As they passed the Pearl Palace, she wondered how she would be admitted into the palace of the Grand Dowager concubine. All her attempts to gain information had been met with sealed lips. The Pearl Palace servants were all extremely tight-lipped. They entered the Saffron Palace, and Anya immediately noticed that the Saffron was better than the Mauve Palace. The designs of the concubine palaces were all the same, but the furnishings were noticeably different. Her draperies were more plush somehow, and the furniture had a more intricate design. She must be very favored by His Majesty. Anya let the words slip intentionally. A small, barely noticeable flinch flashed on Iveta's face. Anya had been wondering what the woman's angle was. Iveta acted soft with bursts of irritation. Did she hold envy for the other ladies? She is, but it is no matter to me. The Emperor might have his favorites, but he makes sure we all live in absolute comfort and luxury. Most of the things in Lady Aenor's home are gifts that were given to her by her extremely influential family. Iveta tried to answer with lightness. Anya held her tongue. No need to irritate the lady even more. Oh look, it is Lady Iveta with her new circus pet, Aenor commented lazily as Iveta entered. Iveta took the insult in stride as it was meant more to offend Anya than her. She bowed in front of Aenor as the woman outranked her. Thank you for having me here, Iveta said. I think I've cooped myself up enough. The comment was met with silence from the other 5 ladies in the room. Anya took pity on her. Iveta seemed to try so hard to please the other ladies, and she got rebuffed. At least your new maid must have entertained you, another concubine said. Lady Anila was the mother of His Majesty's youngest 2-year-old, Minette. Iveta took her seat, and Anya handed her the gold coins. Speaking of entertainment, I heard the director of Merry Things has been sacked by His Majesty himself. Ava changed the topic to a more hurtful one. Anila blanched at the broaching of the new topic. Good job by His Majesty as always. That man was bland and hadn't done anything entertaining since coming to office 5 years ago, Aenor murmured. In her usual way, her words were low but could be sharp as a blade. A circus is coming to town. Will you be taking your delightful maid with you, Lady Iveta? Lady Lilla dragged the conversation in another direction. Her and Iveta were somewhat friends. Is that so? I didn't know that, but as to whether I will take Anya along is not decided yet. I owe her nothing. She is the one who owes me for her life, Iveta said, dragging the conversation in the direction she wanted and came here for. All the pity Anya felt for the lady earlier dissolved. Lady Aenor released a low, mocking laugh. Is that so? May I remind you that my brother also put his bid in for her release. Why would Chief Magistrate Percival beg on Anya's behalf? Lady Lilla asked, her eyes on Aenor. Rolf has always held pity for broken, poor things. As a child, he would bring in broken birds and stray cats, much to the displeasure of Mother. Aenor laughed at the memory that flashed in her mind. Kindness towards whimpering things is absolutely in character of Rolf. Your brother's kindness might be true, but His Majesty released Anya to me, whereas Chief Magistrate Percival was rebuffed, Iveta said proudly. Aenor squinted her eyes, noticing that Iveta was becoming more and more brazen since becoming with child. The quietness at the table spoke volumes as to who they believed convinced the Emperor, and it was not Lady Aenor's brother. Anya held back a laugh. These ladies were all spending their energy trying to claim victory over her release. I can't wait for the circus. I have always loved them. Ava took the topic back to something safer for all of them. Yes, entertainment is something overdue. Lady Susanna, who had been quiet the whole time, joined in. Say, Lady Anilla, isn't the director of Merry Things your kin? Anilla bit her jaw. Yes, he is. He is such a great disappointment. No doubt, Aenor commented. You would know, Lady Aenor. Your cousin completely handled the Adair's drought situation with so much incompetence and corruption. Too bad he had to lose his head for it. He left quite a mess. His Majesty is just finishing to clean up 3 years later, Anilla bit back. Anya was shocked with the cannibalism that was happening at the table. They attacked a weakness and tore each other apart with a perfumed soft smile and polished words. Yet they called people in the working class like Anya uncivilized and barbaric. The local people would never sit, smile, and insult people they claimed to be friends with. Aenor hit the table in anger and annoyance. Joaquin has been removed from the family tree for soiling the Percival name. Never mention that dead traitor to me again, she said, her calm exterior cracking for the first time in Anya's eyes. Calm yourself, Lady Aenor. It was in bad taste that Anilla mentioned him. We all have someone we once called blood. That is absolutely disappointing, Yvetta spoke clearly. The fact that Yvetta, who seemed to be slowly growing in influence, spoke with so much grace annoyed Aenor more. She believed Joetian was the main reason His Majesty hadn't made her empress. Whether disowned posthumously and removed from the Percival family tree, her cousin had already tainted it. And now Yvetta gloated while pretending to be civil. The rumors were gaining momentum that if she gave birth to a boy, she would be made empress. Everybody leave. I have a headache. Aenor regained her composure. She stood, and so did the other ladies, who bowed to her as she went to her quarters. Yvetta left the room, and Anya followed closely behind. Anya noticed a brightness on her lady's face. She seemed satisfied with the chaos that was the card game. As they left the gates of the Saffron Palace, Anya asked, You seem to be satisfied with the outcome of the game, my lady. That was the best card game I have ever attended, she said with a serene smile. Another sedan was coming, and recognizing that it belonged to the Grand Dowager concubine, Lady Yvetta stepped down from hers and bowed to the older woman. Anya also bowed and looked at her. This was the first time she was coming face to face with the person who murdered her family. Lady Yvetta, you should visit me sometime. We will have tea. Good day, she said, and instructed her handmaiden to tell the leader of her horse to continue moving. Lady Yvetta released a breath she was holding in while she got back on her vehicle. Are you all right, my lady? Anya said, her attention on the back of the Grand Dowager concubine's entourage. Of course, she simply answered Anya. When they reached the Mauve Palace, the excitement and happiness hadn't worn off Yvetta's face, and Solove noticed. You seem to be in the best of spirits, my lady, she commented. Oh, Solove, it was a grand game. My fortunes are finally turning, and I am starting to believe I am carrying a prince, she said when she reached her salon. Is that so, my lady? Then I won't be wrong to assume a promotion might be in the works? Yvetta started to spin around in happiness. Yes, you assume right. Grand concubine? Am I to call you your highness? Solove asked in excitement. Anya stood aside and watched the commotion. Yvetta shook her head. Higher. Imperial concubine? She shook her head once more and pointed higher. Solove gasped, and Yvetta grabbed her hands as they skipped around in a circle. Empress? Your Majesty? They both giggled in happiness. Anya looked to the door and saw His Majesty standing in it. It was obvious from his facial expression of disappointment that he had caught hold of the last and most important part of the conversation. Anya immediately knelt and lowered her eyes. Thancred cleared his throat, and the two women immediately stopped what they were doing and bowed upon seeing His Majesty. Your Majesty, Yvetta began breathlessly. Giroux helped her stand straight. I can see you are in high spirits and energy, my lady, he asked casually. The look of disappointment that was on his face earlier completely disappeared. Yes, I am. His Majesty, though he hasn't been physically around, always remembers to send kind words that I appreciate. Indeed, his deep voice murmured. Anya, who left the room to get some wine, came back and began to serve it. Giroux looked at her and was disappointed that her eyes were downcast. They were like a still green pool which held a lot of mystery and openness at the same time. I surmise you have been busy, Your Majesty, Yvetta said to get his attention back. Yes, I have. My apologies for being neglectful, he said to her. No need to apologize, Your Majesty. You have a lot of things that you need to attend to. Giroux took Yvetta's hand and rubbed it with a smile. He was actually considering her seriously for empress. He thought, unlike other concubines, she was level-headed and not scheming. Today had proved otherwise. The silence that had ensued made Yvetta nervous. She wondered if the emperor heard her ambitions. The only person who could say so was Anya, as she was standing near the door. Iveta bit her jaw, wondering why the foolish girl didn't warn her. I hear the circus will be arriving in town. I wish to take Anya with me on that day. It might make her happy to see a familiar sight, Iveta blurted. Solove was hurt at hearing her lady had chosen Anya. She would have loved to go to the circus. Anya, on the other hand, raised her eyes and brows in surprise. She didn't care to go to the circus. The only memory she had of the place was of Mother falling down on her horse. Giroux's eyes strayed to Anya, and saw the look of shock and unhappiness in her eyes, which she lowered immediately she saw he was looking at her. You are too kind, my lady, he commented knowingly. He remembered Anya herself said she couldn't remember much about the circus. She felt no kin to the place. Her words to take Anya were to impress him. Most would say I owe her nothing, and she owes me her life, which was possible with His Majesty's kindness, but I feel like it's important to treat those lower than us with dignity and respect, she said, quoting His Majesty on the last part. Quoting my words, my lady, he asked. Yes, your majesty, there is much wisdom in what you say. Kindness is how we will build this empire to great heights. My lady is well educated, he said without expression. Anya looked up with a suppressed smirk. His Majesty taught kindness, but had let her stand hungry in his office the whole day. The mockery was abundant in her eyes when their eyes met. Her face was neutral, but her eyes held a story, and Giroux drew in a sharp breath between his teeth from the rebuke and mockery they held. Iveta hadn't been oblivious to the fact that His Majesty's gaze kept straying to Anya. You may go now, Anya. Solove will assist us now. I'm sure you have a lot of duties you ought to attend to. Anya bowed and silently left the room. Giroux was slightly disappointed when she did, as Iveta began to batter his ears with pointless, boring information. It was not long before he couldn't take any more. I am glad to see you are well, my lady. If you need anything, let me know. I need both mother and child to be healthy, he said. Iveta bowed with a smile, and Giroux left, relief hitting him as he walked out of the Mauve Palace. Iveta had changed, but unlike other concubines, at least she wasn't asking him to show favor to some relative of hers. Yet, Solove was still pouting about her ladyship picking Anya to escort her to the palace. Anya, madam? She asked with sadness. Oh, don't be like that, Solove. I needed His Majesty to see me as a kind, patient woman. You can take the day off and go to the circus yourself the following day if you love it that much. I need His Majesty to see me as an ideal person for the Empress position, but all my effort is for naught if he heard what we were celebrating about earlier. Call Anya immediately, she said. Anya entered the room a short moment later and bowed. You called, my lady? Yes. Why on earth didn't you warn me that His Majesty had arrived? She asked with great annoyance. Anya's eyes were downcast while she looked for an excuse. He came in silently, my lady, and it would have been impudent of me to speak while in his presence, considering you recently saved me from him, she said, almost rolling her eyes on the last part. You could have cleared your throat, Solove nagged. I didn't think of it, my lady. Please forgive me, Anya said, getting on her knees. I am not the smartest person, you know that, my lady. Did he hear anything? Iveta asked, her stomach turning at the answer that she might be given. Not at all, my lady. His Majesty had entered when you were just skipping about, she lied. Anya knew she would be blamed and punished for her ladyship's and her maid's faux pas if she told the truth. Iveta looked away. She should not have lost her composure and guard. She had pretended to be docile for too long to let her false cover slip. It is disgusting, however, how you put yourself out here and make yourself an object to grab His Majesty's attention. And those looks you two exchange? What do they mean? Solove asked. Iveta turned her attention back to Anya. She was aware His Majesty was attracted to the girl. He hadn't made a secret of it, but as to why he hadn't taken her as his concubine yet, was a shock and mystery to Iveta. There isn't anything to be worried about, my lady. His Majesty thinks I have a very impudent eye. I am guessing it is in my nature. I cannot help the impudence I might exude at times that I am not even aware of it, but it did not stem from affection as Solove would like to paint it. He and I spent long hours in his receiving room on the day her ladyship came to beg for my release. We did not exchange words, and that was an opportunity for him to have me as he wanted, but he only made me stand. No, my lady. His Majesty just finds me to be interesting, I guess, like you would find a parrot, she finished. It was absurd for anyone to think His Majesty held any attraction towards her, she reasoned. Iveta sat back and considered Anya's words. The girl was not very smart, and was very impulsive, but she was right. Solove, go over to the Grand Dowager Concubine's residence and confirm when we ought to have the tea. Iveta changed the topic. Solove's eyes widened. The Grand Dowager, my lady? A large smile cracked on her face. Yes. Iveta couldn't contain her own smile as well. That was what I wanted to tell you. The reason for my happiness. This is it, my lady. This is your chance, Solove said. Anya, seemingly lost, asked, why is tea with the Grand Dowager so important? Because the Grand Dowager concubine is the most powerful woman in the Marble Palace since we do not have an empress. His Majesty, though she is not his mother, was very respectful to her. Her opinion matters as to who he takes as concubine or becomes empress, Solove explained proudly. Oh, Anya simply answered. Yes, oh, now go, Solove, and make my appointments. You can carry on with your duties, Anya. I'm done with you for now, Iveta said. Both maids bowed to their lady and left her alone as they went their separate ways.